All right, here we go. It says sketch the graph of the factored cubic function. So whatever this was when it was multiplied out, if I were just to take my leading term, so I'd have x times x, that would give me an x squared and times something else if I multiplied these two here together. And then multiply that by the third one, I would now have x cubed plus something else. And when we're graphing these, or we're just looking for our leading term and what's going on at the leading term. So if we multiply this out, hopefully you can see that your leading term would be x to the third with a coefficient of positive 1. And that's really our most important information here for figuring out how to graph it. So we've got that. It's going to be a kind of keep that, store that in your head, x to the third off to the side here. Now, as we graph it, that's going to help us with our end behavior. We also need to know where our roots are at because they can tell us where it's going to hit the y-axis. And so we grab our roots here, and so x plus 1 means our root is x equals negative 1. Oops, negative 1. X minus 1 means our root is positive 1. And lastly, x minus 2 means our root is positive 2. And I'm just going to sketch here right now, but let's say that's our negative 1, positive 1, and positive 2. So that would be 2, 0, 1, 0, and negative 1, 0. So as this graph, it's who knows exactly what it's going to look like. We're going to figure that out, but it's going to have to go through these roots. So it's either going to look something like that, or it'll look something like that. It's got to go through our roots right here. So there's kind of our two very just generic options. But now let's go back and think about our degree. Is the degree odd or even of that leading term? And it's odd. That tells us what? And refer back to your notes that if the degree is odd, it means the two ends are going to go in opposite directions. Now, is our leading coefficient going to be positive or negative? And it's positive. It's positive 1. So that means that as x gets more negative, then y gets more negative, and as x gets more positive, then y gets more positive. So it's starting at negative infinity. This graph is going to head, as x gets more and more negative, that y will get more and more negative. And as x gets more and more positive, y will get more positive. Remember, they're going opposite directions. And if it's a positive leading coefficient, as it gets negative, it's going negative, and as it gets positive, it's going positive if it's a odd degree polynomial. So our end behavior is that y, or f of x, heads towards negative infinity. Remember, it's heading down here, negative infinity, as x approaches negative infinity, or as x heads to. And y is going to head towards positive infinity as x gets more and more positive. So now we can sketch our graph. If it had to start down here, it's going to be heading up. It's got to go through this root, heads on up. It's going through it. Now if it's got to get back down here to this root, means at some point it's got to turn, head on back down. And again, it's going to have to turn to get back here again. So it turns, and then that works out. That's supposed to be heading up to positive infinity. There's a very rough sketch of our polynomial function, a sketch of specifically of our cubic function over here. All right, we'll keep on practicing with this, but I hope this helps.